McIllree. As an intro, can you give us just a short overview about the current developments for the Carwonnefield project?
Sure. We started working on the licence in Greenland in 2006. At that time, we recognised that the resources were all connected at depth, and that the outcropping material, which could be seen at surface, represented obvious targets throughout the last 5 years. Now, the company has spent 5 years worth of drilling on Carwonnefield, more recently Zone 2 and Zone 3, and this has really proven the bigger picture that these three zones are just a small part of the overall ore body that exists at depth.
And what you expect is a global resource for the whole project, inclusive Zone 2 and Zone 3?
I think that in a longer term sense, resource definition is simply a function of drilling. So the longer you drill, the more you will find. But I would say that Zone 2 will probably be the first ore body that is developed. It's a higher grade, similar size ore body to Carwonnefield. Zone 3 is going to be something in the vicinity of an additional 100 to 150 million tonnes, once again at a higher uranium grade. I think in a global sense, the entire intrusion could yield several billion pounds of uranium, several tens of millions of tonnes of rare earths, and many, many billions of pounds of zinc in a global sense.
So that's interesting. You first develop Zone 2 to go into production?
Yeah, that's correct. That's the idea at the moment, although we have many options to which will be first developed. With a little bit more drilling during this year, Zone 3 might actually be more simple, simply because it will be closer to the processing plant footprint, which is between the international airport and the ore body. So that's the Narsarsuaq Airport. Now, what that means is, I guess, that we'll be able to mine higher grade material because the cap of these ore bodies hasn't been eroded away like it has at Carwonnefield. And that's why Carwonnefield, whilst still very large, is a slightly lower grade ore body, because the top has been wiped off. So we expect that Zone 2 at the moment will be the preferred start. Zone 3 may change that. We have some drilling that we'll be doing this year that will really test the depth extent of this project, and I think that's really where you'll see the resources jump up into the billions of pounds of uranium.
Yes, and what is the status quo in regard of the permissions to mine and to process uranium?
Over the last 6 years, we have worked in close consultation with the Greenlandic authorities, all Greenlandic stakeholders, from the local people and population all the way to the government of the day. And what's happened over that 5-year period is an evolution from a zero tolerance, never to happen view of the world by most Greenlanders to one now where it's been investigated by us through polling that 85% of the Greenlanders that are aged under the age of 30 want the project to move ahead. Something like 75% of all of the Greenlanders want the project to move ahead. So really what we're working closely with the government and the authorities is to get in place the necessary framework, regulatory environment, and the rules and the regulations that we will be abiding by, because keep in mind, Greenland doesn't have a history of radioactive mineral separation, and we're working closely with them putting that regulation in place. Part of the result of that can be seen late last year. We got uranium on our licence. Now this is significant because prior to December 5th last year, we didn't own the uranium. Now we do. So moving forward from here, what what the investors or speculators can expect is that the zero tolerance, which is currently under review by the government, is scheduled to be decided upon, either to be removed or not removed, before the end of this year. So that's really something that could happen at any time, and I think that is probably the biggest issue that is associated with our share price. I think once that issue is resolved, the share price should move along quite strongly and more reflect a 500 million to £1 billion of uranium plus rare earth resource.
And what is the timeline for Zone 2 and Zone 3, and how you want to finance the project?
Okay, the timeline, we've said right from 2006 that this is a project that will be in production in the first quarter of 2016. We're still very firmly committed to that. In the next couple of weeks, the company will be releasing its feasibility study, which is the culmination of 4 years' worth of metallurgical and engineering investigation into the development scenarios of the project. We will use that feasibility study to apply for a mining licence later this year, prior to which will be in our view, potentially, will be the undoing of the zero tolerance. And we anticipate that there will be a 2-year construction period, and start of processing will occur in the first quarter of 2016.
And
the funding... I'm sorry, Christian. I was just going to move on to the funding side of it. I think that the less I say on this, the better at this point in time, quite simply because the company is in very sensitive discussions with a number of parties about the development scenarios and financing of this project. These are sovereign entities of both North American and Asian and European groups that represent the biggest of their type globally. All of the groups that we are talking to are Fortune 500 companies, and it's very reassuring for us that we have many parties at the table that are interested in developing this project with us. So that's all I'll say on that at the moment, but I think that one could reasonably expect the financing framework for this to be announced to market before June 30 this year.
So the final question, would the management agree to any possible takeover bid from a big player?
No, we haven't necessarily explored the takeover. I think this is something that we as a company recognise we can add a lot more value here in the short term. I think it's important to recognise that the company is only valued at $200 million, yet it has the largest rare earth and uranium occurrence globally. So I think what we're trying to do with the announcement to do with the feasibility study, a resource upgrade for Zone 3, which will take the overall resources to 1 billion tonnes of material, getting out, working through the politics associated with zero tolerance and getting a strategic partner on. These are all things that will add enormous value to the company, and we're not interested in getting taken over before we've added that value ourselves.